Have you ever second guessed yourself while drinking a glass of milk? Have you ever thought about the process of how the milk you drink gets to you in your home? Have you ever wondered about how the milk you drink affects your body? I guarantee that the majority of you watching this video right now answer no to all three of those questions, but there is a movement that is currently active that seeks to make people think about all those questions. The hashtag Ditch Dairy movement, led by animal rights activist organization PETA, is a movement that attempts to get people all over the world to cut milk out of their dietary routine for the sole purpose of saving cows. PETA provides many reasons why you shouldn't drink milk, but just how logical are they? Today, we're going to dive deep into the rabbit hole that is PETA and explain why you should not hashtag Ditch Dairy. Now, before we talk about the movement, we have to talk about the organization behind it. PETA was founded in 1980 with the mission of fighting for animal rights in 4 specific areas described by their website as in laboratories, in the food industry, in the clothing trade, and in the entertainment industry. They even go as far as promoting veganism by giving out free vegan nutrition plans and stating we should not purchase products made from animals at all, such as leather. While the organization has good intentions to prevent the unethical treatment of animals, the way they attack the problem itself isn't always the best. For example, in mid-2008, PETA attempted to protest against the AKC, which is an organization whose mission statement explains that the club promotes responsible dog ownership and defines their objective as to advance the study, breeding, exhibiting, running, and maintenance of purebred dogs. PETA suggests that the AKC shares the blames for animal homelessness and overpopulation due to dog breeding. PETA also accused the AKC of euthanizing dogs that did not meet a specific standard for adoption. The animal activist group then launched a shock advertisement campaign in which they compared AKC members to Klansmen of the Ku Klux Klan. But that's not all. During an AKC dog show in February 2009, PETA took it one step further and sent out employees to dress up as Klansmen to protest the show, adding further comparisons of AKC members and Klansmen. When all of it was said and done, they made sure to post the event on their blog with pride, stating, "Want to incite a media circus that almost, but not quite, sends into fisticuffs? Just put on a white seat outside the AKC's biggest dog show and let the dog biscuits fall where they may." This whole campaign by PETA is absolutely blasphemous because it makes no sense to compare a dog breeding organization to a white supremacist hate group just because they advocate purebred dogs. However, this is not the only time PETA has used white supremacy to boost their agenda. Back in October of 2018, PETA's Twitter account posted a tweet along with a link directing to an article. The tweet read, "Cow's milk has long been a symbol used by white supremacists. One more reason to hashtag ditch dairy." Now, this is just an absurd statement because it's like saying someone is a Nazi because they have a fond passion for art. Just because a person drinks milk does not mean that they are a white supremacist, even if milk is a symbol of white supremacy. But wait, if you remember correctly, PETA attached an article to the original tweet. In that article, PETA connects white supremacist dairy farmers and gives them the title of human supremacists who exert dominance over cows by raping them through artificial insemination or what they claim to be called rape racks. Artificial insemination is used for many reasons, and according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, can have many benefits like more efficient and safer breeding, as well as safer and healthier farm environments, even though the process is more laborious. Also, because PETA doesn't source where the term rape rack comes from, it is safe to assume this term is not used by farmers whatsoever. Now, we can go on and talk about how employees of an animal rights activist group, such as PETA, literally got arrested for animal cruelty based on an article by the National Animal Interest Alliance. But let's talk about another reason PETA gives for why you should ditch dairy. Now that we've covered the organization behind this movement, let's talk about the basis of the argument PETA uses to say people should not drink milk. Other than stating if you have a milk allergy or if you're lactose intolerant, which is the definition of a truism, PETA brings up some rather interesting points. For instance, they bring up an argument that there is a negative correlation between food sources of calcium, specifically milk, and an American woman's risk of osteoporosis. Their claim comes from a 12-year-long experiment made by the Channing Laboratory, in which results were self-reported on biannual questionnaires by over 77,000 women aged 33 to 59. However, there are a few problems with the design of the experiment. For starters, it is important to understand that there are other factors as to why older women may be at risk for osteoporosis. As some of you may know, women go through a stage in life called menopause, which typically occurs between the ages of 40 and 58, according to the North American Menopause Society. Compound that with the fact that women already have thinner bones than males, it makes sense that 80% of the people with osteoporosis are women, most of which are postmenopausal. Considering the fact that the subjects in the study are females at the typical age at which menopause begins, it should be considered a factor in why the results are the way they are, something which the Channing Laboratory and PETA failed to mention. Also, since results were self-reported via questionnaires, there could be biased results because some people may have interpreted questions wrong, or answers may have been influenced by the subject's emotions on that given day. Overall, the results of this experiment should be taken with a grain of salt and definitely should not be used as a reason to stop drinking milk. While calcium is needed to obtain healthy bones, it is also important to consume a good amount of vitamin D, which controls the uptake of calcium, and both nutrients are necessary for optimal bone health, as shown in a study by the Journal of Local and Global Health Science. The study also indicates that a good source of vitamin D is milk, which means milk can actually help prevent the risk of osteoporosis despite what PETA claims. Surely there's gotta be another health concern that PETA connects to milk, right? Yes, and it's called cancer. There are two types of cancer PETA has attempted to connect to dairy consumption: ovarian and prostate cancer. Let's start off with the latter of the two. The source behind PETA's claim is an article posted on Urology describing an experiment in which 93 men known to have prostate cancer were split up into two groups, a control group and a group that was assigned multiple treatments. Treatments for the subjects included a low-fat, soy-supplemented vegan diet and take part in stress management, psychosocial group support, and exercise programs. The results were collected by the researchers themselves, and they concluded that removing dairy from the subjects' diets was a safe option for men to decrease the risk of developing prostate cancer. However, the article fails to mention the other parts of the treatment in its results: the stress management, psychosocial group support, and exercise programs. Without providing the effects of these programs on the risk of developing prostate cancer, how does one know if the removal of dairy had anything to do with the decreased risk or not? So again, you should take these findings with a grain of salt, and it is safe to assume that milk does not increase the risk of prostate cancer, since the experiment was only performed on men with confirmed cases of prostate cancer. Well, using PETA's source once again, we are directed to an article published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition detailing an experiment to examine the association between intakes of dairy products and lactose and the risk of total epithelial ovarian cancer and its subtypes. Subjects selected for this experiment were selected from the Swedish mammography cohort. This means that all results will only apply to this cohort and not the average woman. Dietary results were taken from a self-administered food frequency questionnaire. The experiment suggests that the more milk a person drinks, the more likely they are to contract ovarian cancer. Again, with the use of self-administered questionnaires, the results now have the potential to be biased and inaccurate, since it depends on the subject to be completely honest about their intake of dairy 100% of the time, and the subject also has to remember exact details on what they've consumed dairy-wise. So once again, the results of the experiment should be taken with a grain of salt and do not prove that milk consumption actually increases the risk of ovarian cancer in women. What else can PETA possibly come up with to prove that milk is bad for you? Well, according to PETA, the more milk you drink, the more likely you are to contract cardiovascular disease due to the saturated fat and cholesterol found in the delicious beverage. However, this is far from the truth. The truth is that there are two types of cholesterol, LDL and HDL. LDL is referred to as bad cholesterol, as high levels of this type is said to increase your risk of heart disease, and HDL is referred to as good cholesterol, which is the antithesis to LDL according to the CDC. The report by Diabetes UK shows a study between the two types of cholesterol in whole and skim milk and heart disease. Even though there are similar levels of LDL in the different types of milk, ultimately whole milk had a higher HDL level. This means that the whole milk actually positively affects cholesterol levels, which decreases your risk of heart disease. But PETA also claims that full-fat milk's saturated fat level also puts you at risk for heart disease. This is also far from the truth because a report made by Arn Vernon Astrup suggests that saturated fat is not associated with heart disease and that milk is actually associated with a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease. This blatant misuse of information and fear-mongering in a campaign should be reason enough to not support it. But you may be wondering, who or what should you support? As we have established throughout this entire video, PETA is not an organization you should support. Although their only good point about this whole thing is that factory farming is bad, which is actually a problem as evident by the Fair Oaks farm situation in the summer of 2019, all of the other points are completely invalid. This leads to my solution. What should you do in order to punish PETA for their wrongdoings and help against private factory farming? The answer is actually quite simple. You completely boycott the company. While PETA suggests you should just go vegan to help the cause of saving cows, this is absurd since they're asking you to completely change your lifestyle. What if you still want to drink milk produced by companies that execute good business practices? That is where I propose that you buy dairy products from the farms that are a part of the DFA, and instead of supporting PETA, you should support the ASPCA. You should buy from DFA affiliated farms because all farms under this organization have standards which they have to meet on the treatment of the cows in order to sell the dairy products. While they are not as mainstream as factory farms, giving these family-owned businesses more funds to expand their marketability will help these businesses grow and reach a wider range of stores. Support ASPCA since they are a reputable organization in the animal rights activist industry and is working to encourage the adoption of higher welfare practices. I know this because businesses don't like it when you take money out of their pockets. They live and die by the consumer. Take the NFL for example. In the 2019 NFL NFC Championship game between the Rams and the Saints, a very controversial officiating decision arguably cost the Saints a trip to the Super Bowl. As a reaction, there was a boycott in New Orleans where most people didn't even watch the popular event. In response, the NFL made a rule change to where pass interference calls or no calls can be reviewed. The point is that when the consumer returns on the company will have to make a change. That is why I know for a fact that my solution will combat the ditch dairy movement most efficiently. Factory farms and PETA will have to adapt to the changing market or else they'll fall into a hole in which they can't get out of. Overall, the whole movement is built upon a very weak foundation and isn't something you should be behind. PETA as an organization has a reputation of creating outrageous campaigns to boost their agenda, and hashtag Ditch Dairy movement is no different. There is little logical backing in the claims, and the only thing logical that they came up with had the wrong solution. After listening to me ramble on about this silly protest, I hope you, the viewer, makes the right decision and not support this movement or organization. I greatly appreciate you listening today, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.